I want to start with the first game because it was the
Yeah.
most exciting. It was the most interesting, and it had the most interesting moment. So the Chiefs go down on that first drive, and it just feels like it's going to be another Mahomes day.
Yeah.
I loved the Jags game plan on defense at the start, and I appreciated what they did for most of the game.
Yep.
After blitzing twice the entire game, the last time they played in Week 10, they brought heat all day. And on the first drive, they gave Mahomes trouble, and he was just doing Mahomes nonsense. He had the jump pass in traffic that Devin Lloyd had him wrapped up in the pocket, and he somehow found Kelsey. They go down and score, and you just had this feeling of it's just going to be one of those days. Even if you do everything right, there's nothing you can do to stop him. And then on the second drive, in the first quarter, Arden Key comes down on his ankle, and I think all of us collectively kind of hold our breath. Like, what does this mean? He goes out for a series. They go down and score a touchdown. He comes back in and still plays magnificent.
Right.
with 1 foot. He couldn't move. He could barely step up in the pocket. He was limping around the entire half. Nate, in this game, he finishes 22 of 30 for 195, which not like a gaudy yards per attempt or anything. You know what his EPA per dropback was in the game?
I actually don't. But I actually want to know this.
It was 0.29.
Which is what his season
was.
was.
That's better than he was in the regular season when he was the MVP of the league. It's just an unbelievable, memorable, kind of put it on the all-time resume sort of reminder. My brother texted me at one point during the game. He said, this is the ankle game. When we talk about Mahomes and we just build his legend over the rest of his career, like we'll remember this as the ankle game. And that's what it was. It was just another feather in a Hall of Fame cap from an unbelievable player.
Right. It was the ankle game. I've always wondered like how Mahomes will age. Will it be like Marino, where Marino is shuffling back in the pocket and just firing these rockets? And it got a little preview. That was like a little nice preview of it. Oh, this might be Mahomes in about a decade or 12 years from now. But no, that was coming back, and you could tell he was pissed. He wanted to stay in there. They forced him to go into the locker room. I mean, being competitive. As soon as he was standing up, I was like, okay, it's not a knee. And so how he fell down, we've seen enough of them that, okay, high ankle sprain. Okay, how bad is it though? And yada, yada, yada. I think we were all on the same page watching it, but him coming back, and then you kind of got to see both sides of the Mahomes yin and yang. You got the first drive with him just ad-libbing all these throws and creating something out of nothing. He had the third down completion to Kelsey in the red zone on the first drive where the Jags brought a blitz. Chiefs did a great job of picking it up. He just bought that extra second for Kelsey to win on his like whip route that takes forever. But Mahomes it's like controlled ad-libbing. I don't know. It's the Robin Williams stuff. It's like you're faking like that you're making it up, but you are making it up at the same time. Like that's what it feels like. And him doing that. But then in the second half, we got to see him, hobbling around and working from the pocket and peppering the defense and still ad-libbing some plays. And it's just, he's so much fun to watch. And you almost feel for the other side. Doug Peterson's just throwing the kitchen sink out there. Trevor Lawrence is playing fine. And it felt like, I said this to Deontay. I said, it feels like watching Felix Hernandez pitch where it was like, he just threw a gem, nine innings, 1 earned run, one walk, 12 strikeouts, and they're losing 2-1.
Just compare Patrick Mahomes to Felix Hernandez. It was the most Nate comparison that's ever happened.
Trevor Lawrence to Felix Hernandez.
That's even worse.
Yes,
that's even more of a Nate parody of himself.
Yes, right there. But that's what it felt like. And it was like, that's what happens when you go against these other guys. You go against number 15. He just shreds in. They always just felt in control. Even with Henny in there, the Chiefs just felt in control of that whole game, even as the Jaguars were doing some nice stuff. It was a great game from him. It's the ankle game. That's exactly it.
And I think that's a really important point to bring up is that beyond Mahomes, it's just a reminder of what Andy Reid and just the infrastructure is. For Henny to come in and for them to drive all the way down the field, and Pacheco had a 40-yard run on that drive. They had other guys step up when they needed it. When he could superhero, he was still a very good quarterback. Patrick Mahomes with this high ankle sprain is probably like the second best quarterback in the league, third best.
That's right. It's still up there. We do can you win with him, or because when it's, like that's kind of, it's like, no, you win because of him. Still, he just drops just a half tier.
But the Pacheco run, obviously that great play. And then the 4th and 1 or the third down call was the same as the 4th and 1 call against the Browns in the playoffs. Chad Henne sprint out, which I really appreciated. But other guys stepping up, the defense stepping up. The defense for the Chiefs played well in this game. I'm curious, before we get into some of the nitty-gritty on the Chiefs, what did you think of the Jags' offensive game plan in this game?
It was a coach understanding that they would lose if they dropped back up front. Like it was a coach getting the ball out as quick as possible, try misdirection. I think it was rather than Doug Peterson going like, "Oh, we got Trevor Lawrence. We're gonna go toe to toe with this defense and toe to toe with Mahomes." I think he understood. It's like Chris Jones is. Did you watch Chris Jones in the second half when the Jaguars had to start dropping back? No shot. He was winning right away every play, and the other guys were taking turns and they're having busts. And then you saw in the second half, that's when Spags' pressure started getting home. He's bringing the corner and the will at the same time, like just over. I think Doug Peterson is no dummy. He understands that. So this is their version of a ball control offense. I sometimes say having quick game and quicker passes with a running game is kind of redundant. I think in a game like this, that's actually okay because that's ball control. And then you try and pepper it with a couple shots down the field. So it got tight on them. I really felt that. It opened up a little bit. I think this is just what they had to do. I think they just had a talent mismatch up front.
Through 3 quarters, I tweeted this out, 43.5% of Trevor's passes had gone behind the line of scrimmage through 3 quarters of the game. He averaged through 3 quarters 4.96 air yards per attempt, and that's with the 55-yard bomb that he threw. So that even
there's still a couple
number.
in there. Yeah.
And they ran the ball well.
Yes.
19 carries for 144 yards. They had the same success rate as the Eagles did before that Boston Scott run. Those are the stats I have. I figured the game was over. So those are the Eagles numbers I have. They ran the ball extremely well. I was surprised they didn't run it a little bit more, honestly, because some of those perimeter runs or those perimeter throws actually got them in trouble. One of the really rough parts of the game for the Jags was the first 2 drives of the third quarter. They had 2 punts.
Yes.
First drive was the Kalen Saunders unblocked play, where they just let him go. It was a miscommunication between the center and Scherf. And then the second drive was when they had those 2 TFLs on those perimeter throws. And that was L'Jarius Sneed made a fantastic play. Just told Zay Jones to get the hell off of him, dropped the guy 4 yards deep in the backfield, and that led to another punt. Other than that, though, the ball control stuff was working pretty well. Yeah. The one time they tried to take a shot early in the second half, that's when Noddy just absolutely lit up Luke Fortner, and there was a sack. So it came out today. Mia O'Brien, who covers the Jags, she tweeted it. I think she was talking to JP Acosta or John Shipley, or just the Jags contingent on NFL Twitter. And she mentioned that Luke Fortner was nursing a back injury all week, which Luke Fortner having a back injury, Brandon Scherf was banged up.
Yes.
And you're dealing with Chris Jones. I have to imagine that was the onus for the ball control game plan that the Jags were trying to use. And eventually they got some really big chunks off of it. The reverse
Christian Kirk drop was this close to that would change the whole picture of the game too.
So I didn't mind. I just thought it was interesting. When I tweeted that out, I think people thought it was a criticism. I was like, I understand why they think they have to do that. And a lot of it was working.
Yeah. So I totally agree. Well, and also too, is that it's not, they didn't go as extreme, but all the quick game, all those flats and bubbles, that's to beat slot pressure, which is what the Chiefs love to run. That's just a simple answer. And that's just, let's not overthink it. Let's get 5-6 yards. And they got them. I mean, it never felt negative. Like, it wasn't like, oh my God, are you kidding me? They just needed a little breathing room, but this is what I think it was the best of a kind of a rough situation that they understand their matchup. And I thought it was a decent job. Also, I just maybe thought I agree with you that maybe a couple more QB reads. I think they did try to do some zone reads, but Trevor just kept giving it because Etienne was getting 8 yards. They're giving him the give read. So I understood that maybe a little bit.
I think the biggest contrast watching these 2 offenses today was what they did in pass protection and what they did in blitz pickup. So you have the Kalen Saunders mishap. And then on the last play, another just kind of stark example, on the last interception, Justin Reed comes untouched through the A gap. That wasn't happening at all today for the Chiefs. So Mahomes finished 9 of 12 for 91 yards against the blitz in this game. And that doesn't even take into account all of the simulated pressures that they gave us 4 guys, which I bet there were another half dozen of those. I bet on 2/3 of Mahomes' dropbacks in this game, they brought somebody from the second level, at least one person. And I thought it was the right game plan. I understood wanting to do it that way because they got absolutely shredded in the first matchup. Don't sit back and let that happen again. Try to force the issue a little bit. But the Chiefs did such a remarkable job in pass protection. The number that stuck out to me, so he averaged 0.68 EPA per dropback when he got blitzed. On those nine,
and 90 something yards. That means that's a lot of first downs.
It's a lot of first downs.
Yes, that's what you want to get. If they're going to blitz you, let's get a first down on against them.
Here is the number that sticks out to me the most. His time to throw on those blitzes, 2.85 seconds. They were picking up the blitzes.
Yeah. Yep.
They were picking up the blitzes consistently. There was one play that I wanted to show from the second half. It was a 2nd and 10, and I think it kind of encapsulates why the Chiefs were so dominant in this game. So the Jags bring 5, and they drop one of their defensive ends, their edge rushers. They did this plenty in the game, and they tried to muscle Kelsey a little bit and get those guys into zone coverage. The blitz from the second level from Rayshon Jenkins, he gets absolutely stonewalled by Jerick McKinnon on this play. Yeah. McKinnon was fantastic the entire game in pass protection. He had like 3 or 4 big pickups on what turned into chunk plays for the Chiefs or first downs. So he picks this up. Mahomes is able to slide up in the pocket against a 5-man rush, and Kelsey comes open late against a dropping edge rusher in space. This play, I think every aspect of it explains why the Chiefs offense was so good today. And McKinnon was a huge part of it. I just feel like he deserves a ton of credit for what he did in pass protection, but also what Mahomes did. That was like the subtle part of his impact on the game with not being able to move. On the MVS touchdown, Mahomes goes to the line and checks the protection. I rewound it like 3 or 4 times to listen. And he said, rip Liz, which I assume is a 3-man slide to the right.
Yeah, so Rip is right, Liz is left. But so if you say Rip Liz, that might be a double point, which is a pain in the ass, by the way.
Whatever it ends up being, because I was wondering if Rip was first, that mean it meant 3 to the right. But whatever it ends up being, that he said it, he goes up and says it twice. They have a 3-man slide to the right. They pick up the blitz, gives him time to find MVS in the back corner, in the back of the end zone. He did that 3 or 4 times where he's changing the protection at the line. They pick it up perfectly. So on those blitzes, to hold it for almost 3 seconds and be as dominant as you were, that was like the defining aspect of their offense to me.
Absolutely. They had another one where he threw a swing pass to Pacheco, and it was against the Jags, bringing like a double twist. They brought a double A gap, and it was hilarious. Is they didn't even show it. Like I rewound this one. They didn't even show it. And Mahomes starts looking around, and then he calls, I think it was their kind of like, he was like alert squeeze or something. He gave something, and snap of the ball. They brought the double twist. Pacheco runs a little swing. No one drops with him. So he just throws it right over there to the left. And it was hilarious though, because it might've been simulated, but it might've been 4, but it was a double twist from the 2 linebackers. But that's the whole process. And it's simple, but if you pick it up, there's going to be a hole somewhere. There's somebody moving at the wrong spot. There's somebody late. There's gashes to be had. You just got to find them. And that's exactly right. When you pick them up, not just the O-line, but the running backs, and then the quarterback is finding these spots. The simulated pressure stuff can be a pain in the ass. I've watched the Broncos do it against the Chargers this year and limit their whole offense just by bringing simulated. It's because the running back has to know when he can release. If you're just I mentioned this a million times, but if he has to stay in at protecting, even though they're rushing 4, that's a win for the defense, right? Just a schematic advantage win. So that's intelligence. And McKinnon's been great at it all year. So I'm really glad you highlighted it. And on top of it, this is pass protection, but also just the run game today from the Chiefs. Just even getting into 12 personnel, but I mean, they had 9 successful runs out of 11 personnel. They were just over and over. They're finding different run plays. When Henny was in there, I noticed that the Jags went to a ton of man. And so it was funny. The Chiefs went back to the stick RPO world with Henny in there, not Mahomes in there. And it was because of man coverage. If you run the stick, those man defenders run out of the box. So it was just these light boxes they just kept pounding away at. So just a great job. Andy Heck's the offensive line coach there. Great job by him, and great job Eric Bieniemy. He does with the running backs. Like, great job by those players, because that leads to successful days like this when the defense is trying to heat you up.
That play you were talking about, the swing to Pacheco, was that the play right before they challenged the spot?
Yes.
Is that the one you're thinking of? So on that play, I wrote it down. He yells, Roger, which I assumed meant a 5-man slide to the right.
Slide to the right.
All slid to the right. So he checked the protection on that play.
Thank you.
There were a couple different times where I was like, okay, I see him changing it. What is he saying?
Want to emphasize, this is why Mahomes is so freaking good. He does protections. Like, this isn't just all the ad-lib stuff. He's incredible. He's incredible. That's why it's amazing. He's checking 5-man slides. I know that sounds, not every quarterback does this, guys. That's why it's really cool to like hear that the MVP should be MVP. The star is doing this type of stuff.
He did it multiple times the second half.
Yeah.
And again, I thought the way that they picked up pressures in this game was the real difference between what the Jags offense was and what the Chiefs offense was. So the other thing that just wanted to highlight before we move on is so obviously the game changes on the Agnew fumble. Like if that doesn't happen, then this is like a real game. And I feel like that
right?
It's important
if
to
they score a
acknowledge that.
touchdown
Like,
there,
yes. So like the Jags were in this thing before that happened. So highlighting all the great things the Chiefs did and the fact that they slowed Jacksonville down and the offense really moved the ball at an amazing clip. The Jags were still in this until that moment happens.
Yes, absolutely.